So today we're going to talk about, are you having the wrong conversation about your ideals? And I think another interesting way to put that might be to say, what is in the way of you realizing your ideals, like fully?
So just to define the word real quick, 'cause I love to just take a minute to define these words. It's one of my favorite parts about preparing for these videos is just to look up the definition of the word,
Sure, yeah.
But the definition that came right up on Google was a standard of perfection, a principle to be aimed at.
To me, ideals are like that compass, that pull in your life that helps lead you where it is you want to go. We have ideals that do that.
Well, we do kind of judge ourselves and our lives and our loved ones and the world according to our ideals.
I agree.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I think that there is still a pressure that we feel, or an urge that we have to serve our ideals well. And there are things that get in the way.
Right.
And there was something that you said to me, I don't know, a while ago, that I thought was a wonderful, subtle shift in language. And we love these. We love these subtle shifts in language, this nuance between different words that made me go, right?
Yeah. Right.
I hadn't thought of it that way, and I hadn't considered that maybe this was in between me and my ideals. And so, what did you ask me about or explain to me a while back? Yeah.
The funny thing that really gets in the way of us coming closer to realizing our ideals is an idea. Is an idea that we form about our ideals.
So if the definition of ideal is a principle to be aimed at, the definition of idea was a thought or suggestion as to a possible course of action. Right? So the ideal is where we're going or what we're going for. And the idea is how we're going to get there.
That's it, right.
But one of the main problems that comes up in so many ways in life is that we get so caught up in how that we forget why.
Yes.
Right? We get so caught up in how we're going to get there, we forget where we're going.
And that's the wrong conversation.
And that's the wrong conversation, is that you conflate ideas and ideals because they are not the same things. The idea is the how. And oftentimes if you're trying to get to an idea and you're failing, it's your how that's failing. Right. You don't need to give up your ideal.
Right.
Right? You need to give up your idea about how you're reaching your ideal.
That's right. Because I know you and I had a really big conversation when I was this was all dawning on me. This was in the beginning of the Black Lives Matter movement that I started watching this happen in other people a lot, right? Like there was so much conflict, and I would watch people and I think everybody has the same ideal in a certain way, right? But everybody's ideas of how to do that and was getting in the way of actually accomplishing their ideal.
There's a TV show I've been watching at night lately as I wash my dishes and do all my stuff. It's like it's a funny adult take on superheroes, like loser superheroes and whatever. And it's called Peacemaker, this show. Okay. So it's just coming out right now. But so Peacemaker has a really great quote that kind of sums up his whole character, but it sums up this difference between ideals and ideals.
Okay.
All right. So his quote is, "I cherish peace with all my heart, and I don't care how many men, women, and children I need to kill to get it."
Exactly. There you have it.
Right? It's like, okay, wait a minute, man. Okay, and everyone laughs at that because it's so obviously silly on its face. Like, I cherish peace, and I don't care how many people I have to kill to get it. But we all do that same that same mistake in little ways.
That's right. When we feel like it is the right idea, it's really hard to let go of. It's really hard to move on to another idea. And I remember when we were talking about that, again, this was something you said that stuck with me, and that is some reoccurring theme in our talks here too, right? Is it's expensive in a way. Like it takes a lot of work to rethink your ideas. And that's part of why we don't do it very often, right? We get stuck in a certain how to do something, even if it doesn't serve us anymore, even if it's not serving the ideal, right? Because
it's hard to let go of. It's very expensive to rethink your idea, so you don't want to do it. So what happens? Your idea becomes an ideal. It masquerades as your ideal.
Right.
How to get the ideal done. Like you serve it like you serve an ideal. But when we get so into the adversarial, the fight, well, okay, let me put it this way. There's the fight for the thing, right? There's the fight for justice. And then there's the fight between you and your adversaries as you try to achieve justice. And which fight are you really having anymore? And do you know the difference? And do you know when you're having a fight versus the fight?
Right.
And so I see that in politics is like, okay, person on this team thinks that this is the path to peace. And the person on this team thinks that this is the path to peace. But they end up arguing for their idea so much that it almost becomes the ideal. Now they worship at that idea. Because then are you serving your ideal anymore?
That. Perfect. Beautiful.
Yeah. Are you serving your ideal anymore? No, you're not. You're serving your idea.
And it's serving
what
you.
It's supposed to be like.
It's serving, meaning not serving you, like it's using you. That's what happens,
Well, this is one of my favorite quotes of all time. People don't have ideas. Ideas have people. And it's a really good thing to remember about ideas as you're playing in the world of ideas is they can be so compelling. They can kind of possess you.
Right.
And you don't know, you think you're owning it and you think it's yours, but you're it.
Like, I remember when this really dawned on me, again, this was the Black Lives Matter stuff was going on, and it was causing a lot of feuds in families, like between family members, These are people who love each other. Now, they love this idea, but love is the highest ideal, right? So if this ideal is not being met in your idea, if your idea is getting in the way of that ideal of love, then maybe you need to try something else, right? Work it a little differently. This was part of what I was trying to share with somebody when all this stuff came up here for me, and I tried to share it with the world, between you and me, and then on a video, and I think once we need to revisit the feeling sense of what our ideals are, without the how-to. Set the how-to down for just a moment. Let that go. It's that quiet place again that we're always talking about, right, David? That's because the how-to is all about all about how, right? You see it?
And the only way to reconnect to the ideal is to put the idea down for a minute and reconnect with the ideal and ask yourself, is the ideal actually being served? Am I making progress? Are we having the same wrong conversation over and over and over again? Right? Is the way I'm having this conversation, is it inviting people in or is it pushing them away? And be really honest with yourself.
Right.
Because whether it should invite them in or not is different than whether it does really invite them in or not.
Right, exactly. Yep.
Right,
yep.
Your idea may not be wrong, but it also may not be working.
And that's what's important about this conversation. To start looking for that, because they exist in all of us, right?
And it's not just saying is my idea wrong? It's not even, because your idea might be wrong or it might be limited, but it may not even be wrong. But it also may not be working. Right? So when you're dealing with another person, you can have a path.
This is a beautiful
Sometimes we coach people, right? You and I are personal coaches, right? And you're both shooting for the same ideal, right? You're both trying to help this. You're trying to help this person reach what their ideal is. They're trying to reach what their ideal is.
Sure.
You have an idea of how they need to get there. They have an idea how they need to get there. Now, sometimes they need to talk to you because their idea has been failing for years and they wanted some outside help from a coach. Right? So, but then sometimes you're talking to somebody as a coach, and we know because we just talked about this. This is why
I know. It's just so great. Yeah.
Is that sometimes you have an idea for what's going to help them get there, and so you try to lead them down your path, and they're off somewhere in the field, off somewhere else, on some other journey, and you didn't lead them anywhere, and then they find their way there. but they had to get there through their own path. And so your idea, it wasn't that your idea was wrong, but it wasn't working, or it wasn't working for them.
Yeah, exactly. I remember seeing that, and you, I think it was you that said the quote of, no man steps into the same river twice, because it's not the same man and it's not the same river, right? There's something about that says everything about this thing with ideas versus ideals, right? The ideal is like where we're trying to head in the river maybe or something, right? But that idea is some frozen moment of what we think that ideal should be. But that's a dangerous thing because you're not the same, the river's not the same, and that idea of what you think your ideal should be often gets in the way of actually accomplishing your ideal. This is why I say it's really important to revisit the feeling. And I know that might sound a little woo-woo or a little mushy or something, but I think it really does come down to that, though. Like if you get in touch with how you're feeling while you're advocating for this idea, you might find that you're not, that it's not matching up with the feeling of your ideal. In other words, are you pissing everybody off around you, as an example, or right? Like, you know what I mean? More than likely, it doesn't carry the same feeling sense as your ideal. You know,
that's a great way, like just a way to check yourself.
Yeah, exactly my point. You're right. Exactly.
Yeah.
My point.
Are the results I'm getting in line with my ideal?
That's it. And then too, you know, you might do that in the moment. You might do that after, right? You had a gathering and you were doing this thing and this all went down and you're reflecting on it and you're like, the feeling inside isn't very good. And then you say to yourself, well, gee, what was I trying to do? What was my ideal? And how does that feel? Right? And then we go from there to come back and go, okay, well, how could I come up with an idea that would be more congruent with the ideal?
So I've been working on some finishing up some new songs recently.
Okay.
And the song that kind of got me back into my interest in finishing these songs was a song I wrote years ago, but I never finished, called "Who Would You Kill?" And the opening verse goes like this. It says, "Who would you kill for everything under the sun? If you knew it could be the only chance you'd have for a love like that." Okay, so who would you kill for a love like that? But then it goes on to say, but is there even a love like that once you're a killer and once all the damage is done? And to me, that fits in with this, like, there's this ideal I'm shooting for, but if I use the wrong idea to get there, am I serving the ideal or am I moving away from it? Who would you kill?